Today's excerpt is from Chapter 8 on Martin Van Buren. Now, if you've ever seen a picture of Martin Van Buren, he's a weird-looking dude in a group of weird-looking dudes because all the dudes looked weird at that time in American history. You saw some crazy facial hair, side lamb chop action going on, crazy Einstein hair. It was they were all sort of like that. I have sympathy. You know, you didn't have the same kind of hairstylists and products at that time. Photography was just in its earliest stages. So people can be forgiven for that. But what most people don't understand about Martin Van Buren is he was the architect of the modern political party system. Obviously, you knew that if you've read political history of that early era in the United States, you understand that it was really Washington famously didn't like political parties. But by the time you got to Adams and especially Jefferson and beyond, political parties were reasonably well established, but they weren't the kind of political parties that you saw today with the infrastructure, with local, all the way from national down to local organization. That was Martin Van Buren's doing. He was vice president during Andrew Jackson's presidency, and what was important to know is that he was the one who believed, and he was the architect of that, he believed that political competition rather than cooperation was the right way to get things done. And what he believed about that was political competition would make sure that party organizations at all levels would stay more responsive to constituents. It would give people an opportunity to participate in the political process in an organized way rather than as a rabble sort of way and a populist sort of way. It was a structured process that would bring leaders up through the ranks. It would allow local people to maintain their idiosyncrasies and responsiveness to local politics. But as people rose through the ranks, they needed to appeal to a broader and broader set of constituents. And that would mean that you'd filter out some of the crazy. Now, you can start to see that, or at least up until about 2016, you certainly could see that in both the Democratic and Republican parties in the United States as they became known pretty much after 1970. You could see that you'd get real weirdos could get elected in the House of Representatives. You'd get less weird in the Senate. And by the time you got to president, you got pretty milquetoast people. They could appeal to a broad cross-section of people. Was it perfect? No. But you can trace that all the way back to Martin Van Buren. So, the excerpt we're going to read is actually from the beginning, and it's a little story highlighting that balance between cooperation and competition. When I thought about this, I thought primarily about my own experience in product innovation and product development. And what's the right answer when you think about that? What's the right answer between, is it better for two products to compete in the market, or is it better for a product standard, for industry to get together and create a standard? And I don't think there's a one right answer to that question. So the story we're going to talk about is a little bit between Bluetooth and Blu Ray and the different approaches there. It's a fun little sequence, and the rest of the chapter is really interesting. We go through the Oxford debate on cooperation versus competition in political parties, but it's a little bit more fun and appropriate here to talk about something that most people understand a little bit better. So let's jump in. I was a little sad walking into my local Best Buy store's electronics recycling center. No, I wasn't teary or anything like that, but my trusty Sony Blu Ray player had served me well for several years. However, now that I am paying for 3 streaming media services and the entire movie database was at my virtual fingertips, it didn't make sense to keep it. Plus, my wife. She's the tidy type. I'm not sure if it's coincidence or lazy branding that I'm typing this on a Bluetooth wireless keyboard. Although both use the word blue in their names, only one relates directly to the color itself. The blue in Blu Ray relates to the color of the laser used to read the optical disc, while the blue in Bluetooth refers to a 10th century Danish king with troublesome dental habits. The reason I bring them up in the same breath is that the two blues help me highlight two very different approaches to product development. Blu Ray emerged victorious after a years-long competition with a competing format, HD DVD. You might remember seeing both versions in stores in the mid-2000s. The marketplace battle was not so dissimilar to prior format wars. VHS versus Betamax, compact cassettes versus 8-track cartridges, and even between different gauges of railroad tracks in the 1800s. There are dozens of other examples. Although it led to a messier process, competition between standards allowed manufacturers to better gauge what consumers valued and adapt their product to meet demand. Yes, choosing the winner tends to take longer than only having one choice, obviously, but the result proved better. By contrast, the Bluetooth standard was created to solve a very basic technical challenge: short distance, low power, wireless communication between two or more devices. In the late 1990s, IBM, Toshiba, and others signed on to the Bluetooth Special Interest Group, or SIG, to develop a standard all manufacturers and software developers could use. It's important that everyone is on the same page because Bluetooth impacted both hardware and software. The cooperation led to faster adoption of the standard because manufacturers knew what to build and consumers could trust that they wouldn't be caught with obsolete technology. My parents were not happy they bought a Betamax player. I suspect you have your own similar experience. You can quibble about the details of each story, and trust me, techie people do, but the bottom line is that both methods, competition and cooperation, led to a positive outcome. It's the age-old debate not limited to new products competing for customer dollars. We see the same tensions at play in politics. Is it better to cooperate, or is it better to compete? The answer to that question is not obvious, as we'll see with the presidency of Martin Van Buren. All right, that's it. That's the excerpt. Comes from the beginning of Chapter 8, where we talk about kind of relating Blu Ray and Bluetooth to the political environment in Martin Van Buren's day. It's a fascinating breakdown. We don't talk a lot about Martin Van Buren specifically, kind of his history and the biography stuff. You can go read that if you like. We talk about competition versus cooperation and what's the right answer. I think at the end, I lay out the debate. It's up for you to decide what the right answer is. Take care.